Hello, my name is Sarah, and I want to share my journey of learning English in London with you. A few years ago, I moved to this beautiful city with a big dream to build a successful career and make a better life for myself. But there was one major obstacle standing in my way: English. When I first arrived in London, I knew a little bit of English. I could say hello, thank you, and ask for directions, but that was about it. I quickly realized that English wasn't just a language I needed to get by with. It was the key to everything I wanted to do. From making friends to finding a job, and even just enjoying life in this city, I knew that I had to improve my English skills fast. At first, it felt overwhelming. London is such a fast-paced city, and everyone seemed to speak so quickly. I could barely understand the conversations around me, and it was difficult to express my thoughts clearly. I felt embarrassed when I couldn't communicate properly, and there were times I wanted to give up. But I didn't. Instead, I made the decision to take my English seriously. I knew that if I wanted to succeed in this city and truly feel at home, I needed to focus on learning the language. And so, my journey began. When I first moved to London, the challenges of not speaking English fluently became very clear. At work, I struggled to understand my colleagues, and sometimes I couldn't express myself the way I wanted to. In meetings, I would sit quietly, nodding along, hoping I didn't have to speak. When I tried to ask a question or share an idea, I often felt embarrassed because I was afraid of making mistakes. I remember one time at a cafe when I tried to order a simple coffee. The barista spoke so quickly that I couldn't understand what he was saying, and I ended up walking away without my drink. It felt like a small thing, but at that moment, I realized how much my lack of English was affecting my everyday life. It wasn't just about work or ordering coffee. It was about feeling confident in my new home. I felt disconnected. The people around me were speaking so naturally, and I was constantly trying to catch up. I began to feel isolated, like I was missing out on so much. I wanted to participate in conversations, make friends, and enjoy everything that London had to offer, but my limited English was holding me back. That was when I reached my turning point. One evening, I was walking home after work, and I overheard a group of people talking and laughing. They were speaking in English, of course, and their conversations seemed so natural, so full of life. In that moment, I realized something important. I didn't want to just get by in London. I wanted to fully live here, to connect with people, and to make the most of this amazing opportunity. I wanted to speak English like everyone around me, confidently and naturally. That realization was a game changer. I knew I had to take charge of my learning, and I couldn't wait for the perfect moment. I had to start now. I set myself a clear goal. I would improve my English no matter what it took. I told myself that I would be patient, but I would also be determined. I was going to practice every single day, even if it felt difficult at times. I made a commitment to myself to dedicate time every day to learning. Whether it was listening to English podcasts during my commute, reading articles, or practicing speaking with people around me, I would focus on improving. I set smaller goals too, like being able to order coffee without feeling nervous, or contributing one idea in a meeting. These small steps kept me motivated, and every little success helped me build the confidence I needed to keep going. Once I made the decision to focus on learning English, I knew I had to find the right resources to help me. I started by looking online for courses and apps that could guide me. There were so many options, but it was overwhelming at first. I tried several language learning apps like Duolingo and Babbel, and while they helped me learn vocabulary and basic phrases, I still felt that something was missing. I wanted to be able to speak confidently and understand native speakers, but these apps weren't giving me enough practice in real-life situations. I realized that in order to really improve, I needed more interactive and practical methods. So, I decided to try online courses that offered video lessons and interactive exercises. They helped me understand grammar and sentence structure, which was great, but I still felt that my speaking skills weren't improving as fast as I wanted. I needed to practice speaking with real people. That's when I thought about joining a local language school or a language exchange group in London. I did some research and found a language school near my apartment. I was nervous about attending the first class, but as soon as I walked in, I felt a sense of excitement. The teacher was friendly, and the students came from all over the world, which made the class feel even more welcoming. I quickly realized that being in a group with other learners allowed me to practice speaking more often, and I wasn't as afraid to make mistakes. It was a safe space where everyone was trying to improve, just like me. In addition to the language school, I joined a local language exchange group. Every week, I would meet with people who wanted to practice English, and I would help them with their native languages. It was a great way to build friendships while also improving my speaking skills. We would chat over coffee, discussing everything from our favorite movies to the challenges of living in London. These real-life conversations gave me the confidence I needed to speak more naturally and understand different accents and speaking styles. Even though I was making progress with my English, there were still many challenges ahead. One of the biggest struggles I faced was understanding native speakers. In London, people speak quickly and often with different accents, which made it hard for me to catch everything they said. Sometimes I would find myself in conversations where I understood only a few words, and I would feel lost. It was frustrating, especially when I wanted to contribute, but couldn't find the right words or didn't fully understand what was being discussed. There were moments when I felt embarrassed. I remember one time when I was talking to a group of colleagues at work, and I couldn't understand what one of them was saying because of their strong accent. I just smiled and nodded, but inside, I felt so small. I hated that feeling, and it made me doubt myself. But I quickly realized that these challenges were normal. Everyone learning a new language goes through them, and it wasn't a sign of failure. It was part of the process. What helped me push through these difficult moments was my determination to never give up. I knew I couldn't expect to speak English perfectly right away, and that made the pressure feel a little lighter. I decided to set small, achievable goals for myself, which kept me motivated. For example, I set a goal to understand at least one new word every day, or to be able to order food at a restaurant without looking at the menu. Slowly, I noticed the improvements. As I hit each small milestone, my confidence grew. Every time I understood a new word or sentence in a conversation, it felt like a victory. I started to feel proud of the progress I was making, and even though I wasn't fluent yet, I began to trust my ability to communicate. I reminded myself that making mistakes was okay. That was how I would learn. Little by little, I became more comfortable speaking and participating in conversations. One of the most valuable lessons I learned in my English journey was that immersion is key. Living in London gave me the perfect opportunity to practice English every day in real-life situations. No matter where I went, I was surrounded by people speaking English, which forced me to constantly adapt and improve my language skills. The city became my classroom, and the best part was that I didn't have to wait for a lesson to practice. I could learn on the go. Shopping was one of the first areas where I started practicing my English. I remember my first time going to a grocery store alone. I had a shopping list, but when I reached the checkout counter, I suddenly froze. The cashier smiled at me and asked, "How's your day going?" I hadn't prepared for a casual question like that. I quickly realized that English wasn't just about knowing words and grammar. It was also about understanding how people communicate in everyday situations. I gave a simple response, "Good, thank you," but I felt proud that I had managed to hold my own in a real conversation. Public transport was another place where I practiced my English skills every day. London's buses and trains were full of opportunities to listen to native speakers and pick up new phrases. Sometimes I would sit next to someone on the tube and overhear a conversation, trying to catch the words I didn't know. It wasn't always easy, but I tried to focus on the context and use what I already knew to figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words. Over time, I found that I could follow conversations more easily, and I started to feel more comfortable speaking with people on the train or bus. But perhaps the most important part of my immersion experience came from interacting with strangers. Whether it was asking for directions, chatting with the barista at my local coffee shop, or striking up a conversation with someone on a park bench, these daily interactions helped me improve my speaking skills in ways that no textbook could. Each conversation was a learning opportunity. I learned how to ask for help, how to make small talk, and how to express myself in different situations. Sometimes I made mistakes, but the people I spoke to were kind and patient. They didn't judge me for not being perfect, and that made me more confident to keep trying. I also joined local events and activities, such as community meetups and volunteer work, which allowed me to practice English in informal settings. At first, I was hesitant to speak up in group settings, but over time, I realized that people were just happy to have conversations, no matter your level of English. These interactions helped me feel more connected to the city and its people. I was no longer just an observer. I was a part of the community, and my English was becoming a natural tool for engaging with others. Living in London allowed me to continuously practice English without feeling like I was studying. Every conversation, no matter how small, helped me become more comfortable with the language. I learned that language isn't just about vocabulary and grammar. It's about building relationships and connecting with people. Immersion in the city's environment allowed me to see how English was used in different contexts and helped me practice in ways that I couldn't have done with textbooks alone. As my basic communication skills improved, I knew it was time to take my English to the next level. I wanted to move beyond simple conversations and really push myself to become more fluent and confident. This meant going beyond the basics and challenging myself with more complex tasks, and I quickly realized that improving my vocabulary and understanding more sophisticated language was essential for my growth. One of the first steps I took was immersing myself in English media. I started watching movies and TV shows in English, especially those with subtitles. At first, it was difficult to understand every word, especially with different accents or slang, but I used this as an opportunity to learn. I would replay certain scenes to catch phrases I didn't understand and look up new vocabulary. Watching movies not only helped me with vocabulary, but it also gave me a better understanding of how native speakers use language in everyday life, how they express emotions, humor, and different situations. In addition to watching media, I also started reading books in English. I began with simpler novels, but as my reading skills improved, I moved on to more challenging books. Reading introduced me to more advanced sentence structures and a wider range of vocabulary. I loved how reading helped me internalize language patterns and phrases that I could later use in conversations. Some books, especially novels, taught me cultural references and idiomatic expressions, which were helpful for understanding everyday English in London. But I didn't stop there. I joined advanced language workshops and speaking events where I could practice more formal speaking and engage in deeper discussions. These workshops gave me the chance to speak about complex topics, ask questions, and interact with other learners and native speakers. At first, I felt nervous, but over time, I became more comfortable with these higher-level conversations. I started discussing topics like current events, politics, and literature, subjects that required me to use a wider range of vocabulary and think critically in English. By attending these events and workshops, I also had the opportunity to meet other English learners who shared similar goals. Speaking with them and learning from their experiences further motivated me to keep improving. It was exciting to be part of a community where everyone was working towards the same goal of mastering English. Looking back on my journey, it feels surreal to think about how far I've come. When I first moved to London, I struggled just to hold a basic conversation in English. Simple questions like, "Where are you from?" or "What's your name?" felt like huge obstacles. But today, I find myself conversing fluently in English, whether I'm chatting with friends, presenting in a meeting, or discussing complex topics in professional settings. Reaching fluency wasn't an overnight process, but with persistence and the right strategies, I eventually got there. One of the key factors in my journey was consistency. I quickly realized that language learning is not about occasional intense study, but about steady practice every day. Even when I wasn't attending classes or workshops, I found ways to practice. I made it a habit to speak English whenever I could, whether it was with friends, at the store, or even while running errands. Speaking in everyday situations helped me develop a natural rhythm and fluency that I couldn't have achieved through isolated study alone. Another important strategy was setting small, achievable goals. At first, my goals were simple. I want to be able to order food in English without any hesitation. Once I achieved that, I set bigger goals, like giving a short speech or presenting an idea at a work meeting. Each goal pushed me to improve in different ways, and celebrating small victories along the way kept me motivated. I found that when I broke my larger goal of fluency into smaller milestones, the process felt less overwhelming and more manageable. The support of the language community also played a huge role. Through language workshops, speaking events, and even online forums, I had the opportunity to speak with other learners and native speakers. These interactions provided valuable practice and feedback, which accelerated my learning. The more I practiced, the more confident I became. I began to realize that the fear I had at the beginning wasn't about not knowing enough English. It was about the fear of making mistakes. Once I accepted that making mistakes was part of the process, I became more comfortable and open to using English in all situations. One of the most rewarding parts of this journey was the shift I experienced in my confidence. Initially, I would freeze up during conversations, worrying about making errors or not understanding the other person. But as I kept pushing myself, I learned to focus less on perfection and more on communication. I became more comfortable in social settings, where I could confidently talk about anything, from weekend plans to deeper discussions about culture, travel, or politics. In professional settings, I started to take on more responsibility, like leading meetings or participating in interviews, all in English. Today, English is no longer a barrier for me. It's a tool I use to connect with others, both socially and professionally. Whether I'm speaking with colleagues in a corporate environment or with friends at a cafe, I can express myself clearly and confidently. I've learned that fluency isn't just about knowing grammar rules or having a large vocabulary. It's about being comfortable with the language, using it confidently in different contexts, and enjoying the process of communication itself. Looking back, I realized that fluency didn't happen because of one specific method or strategy. It was a combination of consistent practice, setting goals, learning from others, and, most importantly, never giving up. Today, I speak English with the same ease that I speak my native language. I can participate in any conversation, work on projects, and even think in English at times. It's been a journey of growth and discovery, and now English is a powerful tool that continues to open doors for me in both my personal and professional life. If you're just starting your English learning journey, I want to remind you that it's okay to feel nervous or unsure. I've been there. The most important thing I've learned is that mistakes are part of the process. They don't define you, they help you grow. Don't be afraid of making errors. They're a sign that you're learning and improving. The key is to keep going, even when it feels challenging. For beginners, my biggest piece of advice is to practice every day. Whether it's speaking, listening, or reading, consistency is crucial. Start small, have short conversations, listen to English podcasts, or watch shows with subtitles. The more you expose yourself to the language, the quicker you'll pick it up. Also, don't be afraid to seek out real-life conversations with native speakers or other learners. Immersing yourself in the language is one of the best ways to improve. Remember, learning English takes time, but it's absolutely achievable. Be patient with yourself and stay determined. Every small step you take gets you closer to fluency. I never imagined I'd be speaking English so confidently one day, but with hard work and perseverance, I got there. And you can too.